the computer. Yes. Welcome everyone. I'm here with Catherine from Australia, and on the other side of the planet, I'm calling from South Portland, Maine. My name is Michael Naylor, and I am the director of the Maine Enneagram Center for Transformation and Wellbeing, and have had this great opportunity to do these interviews with people who are, experienced with the Enneagram and know their type and the ins and outs and the particular labyrinthian journey that each type has had to take. So with that, I just want to welcome you, Catherine, and looking forward to just chatting with you and having fun with this. And so, why don't you just start off and tell us a little bit about yourself and when you learned about the Enneagram and whatever seems to flow from that.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
It's so lovely to see you for the first time, because we've been Facebook friends for a while. We've got mutual friends in common, but it's really nice to meet you.
Yes, it's awesome.
Yeah. So my journey with the Enneagram began about 6.5 years ago. So my husband and I had been dating for about a month, and we decided over the Easter weekend to go on a big road trip to a festival. And so the road trip was 10 hours each way. So we were together for a long time. And at that time, he was in the process of doing the final editing for his book, which is called Essential Wholeness. And Essential Wholeness is all about the combination of the Enneagram with spirituality and psychotherapy. So as I'm driving along, Eric would be doing the out loud edits of his book and reading it out loud to me. And the Enneagram was completely new to me. So we're on this massive road trip together for 3 or 4 days. And I got this masterclass all about the Enneagram. Got the chance to question someone one-on-one. What does that mean? And I don't understand that. And tell me more about this. And it was a really wonderful experience, just to sort of have my eyes opened to the Enneagram in such an intimate way with someone.
Awesome.
And so I do remember, during that time when we were driving, he'd be going through the different types, and it got to type 4. Yeah, that's when many pennies started to drop.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so, as you've gotten to know more deeply the Enneagram and the type 4, how would you describe, sort of how you were, in your younger teenage years or early 20s, and what you noticed that were sort of representative of the 4 story? Anything pop up for you?
Yeah, I think that dance between wanting to be part of the crowd and very sensitive to feeling left out versus wanting to be different and not the same.
Yes.
So when I think about my younger years, whether it's primary school, secondary school, university, it was this real tussle. And I always put it down to being Aquarian. Like, I love astrology, so I thought it was like an Aquarian thing to want to be a bit unique and individual and a little bit quirky and not necessarily mainstream, but still have this longing to be part of this group. It was, and it was a very delicate space at times, I think, when I reflect back. There was never that one person that was like my person, my best friend. I was very much part of different groups and floated and had lots of different interests, and never felt short of company, but just never had that real sense of belonging. And kind of like there's that invisible barrier which was keeping me back from other people, which is frustrating at times. Yeah.
Well, it surely can be difficult to reconcile those two orientations. So I wonder, for you, how did you work with it? How did you I mean, I know for myself when I was, back in those days, I would also want to belong, but feel like you people are too insensitive. I don't know if I can bear being with you. Or, you're just something really off here. And then I would try to sort of join what I would call today ordinary endeavors, and it would just be so painful. So it took me a long time to settle down around that. What do you recall in terms of your journey?
I don't think I really knew enough or had the level of self-awareness to be able to go, oh, you're not my people. I think for a long time I just tried to adapt and go along with what was expected. So when I think back to being with groups of friends and having this experience of lots of people around and going out drinking and partying and, all of that. And I think there was part of me inside that was like, this doesn't really feel good. I would much rather be sitting down with someone one-on-one and having a really good conversation and really sort of going deep and having the space to just explore different emotions rather than having to be bright, bubbly, party animal mode. And that's something that really stands out in my memory is I probably just put a mask on it and just thought, when you're a teenager or when you're in your 20s, this is what you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You go out and you party and you drink and you dance and you trash yourself and you wake up in the morning and think, what did I do last night? And then and then the next weekend it begins all over again.
Yeah.
So I just don't think there was, growing up in Scotland and especially the west of Scotland, it's quite a tough environment in many ways. So it doesn't really give a lot of space to sensitivity, I don't think.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. At least 60% of my DNA comes from Scotland, so I've got some of that in my genetic pattern. And I think the thing that stood out for me was that I often felt like I was too sensitive, like things would just bring me to tears, and the other kids would be fine. Did you notice that difference in sensitivity around your companions?
Yeah, definitely, and especially in family as well. So I'm one of 5 children.
So I just lost your voice there for a second. I don't know if you moved away or so.
Okay.
So
I'm one of 5 children. So there was 7 in our family growing up. At one point there was 8 of us in the household because my grandmother lived with us for a few years. So that's a lot of energy in a household. And knowing now myself so much better, recognizing there was that sensitivity where it'd just be a sponge for everyone else's emotions, and not just their overt emotions, but what they weren't sharing and what they were feeling deep down inside. And I could feel it all.
yeah.
And even now today, sometimes there can still be a bit of confusion. Is this mine or is this someone else's that I'm picking up on? But I think as a coping for that, and I really thank therapy for helping work through all of this stuff as well. It was a shutdown that happens. So I think I just went into a bit of a freeze response and just shut down, and just kept it quiet and just tried to be what people wanted me to be, as opposed to the true authentic expression of my being, which, as we know, is so much better to live that way.
Well, it seems like a lot of us, including myself, had that kind of X-ray vision in terms of sensing hidden suffering in the family that no one was talking about. And as a little guy, it was very confusing, and because I was picking up on stuff that later on I came to understand was actually true and real, but at the time it was confusing because it felt like I could sense my mother's pain and my brother's pain, but I didn't have the language or understanding around it. But like you said, being a sponge, I felt like for a long time, I just drank in whatever the environment was, and then would
Yeah.
walk around with a kind of heavy heart. So so it sounds like therapy helped you. And are there times today when you sort of soak in too much of the atmosphere around you and notice, oh, I'm log jammed. I've got, I'm carrying, everybody's soul with me. I mean, what's your experience now today?
It doesn't happen quite as often as it used to. So I think the sensitivity is such a great gift, right? Like it helps me in my work, it helps me teaching people, it helps on one-on-one sessions, helps me tune into the energy of a group and maybe what they need. So there's such a power in it, and I've really come to respect that as opposed to feeling overwhelmed by it or it's a handicap. So I guess I'm much more attuned to if it feels like I've taken on too much, then I can distance. But also just realizing that that's other people's stuff, it's not mine. And I don't have to take that on, it's not my responsibility. So I guess thinking about today, it just doesn't happen quite as much. Or if it does happen, I'm more likely to ask a question of the other person, which is less about me and how it might be affecting me, which, as we know, it can be pretty self-obsessed at times. So, it would used to be, if it was my partner, for example, to sort of be reflecting on how it's affecting me, as opposed to, well,
Yeah,
I'm really curious what's going on for you right now, because this is what I'm picking up on.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really learned how to discern the difference and not sort of, one of the things often talked about at the Enneagram Institute is that fours have that thing of sort of getting lost between, is this my stuff? Is this your stuff? Who am I in the midst of this emotional state? And what's true here? And I know for myself, it took me many years to finally discern the difference, and certain things help me, much like, like your self-therapy, but also discovered that exercise and yoga and weightlifting somehow grounded me. So I had a clearer distinction between those forces. So what are the things that you rely on today for staying clear?
I think you've named it perfectly, the body work part of it. So yoga, dance as well, contact improv dance has been a big feature for me. That was very uncomfortable when I first came to that practice because it was just too much. So working with contact has been a really great process as well. Somatic experiencing, so somatic psychotherapy really helped, unravel a lot of the trauma that was caught in my body, and just helped me become much more sensitive to what was going on. When I think back to maybe 5-6 years ago, there was so much more of a disconnect between what was going on in my head and what was going on in my body. So that's helped massively. Therapy's helped a lot. Also, psychedelics has really helped me a great deal as well. Like that's been a real gateway for me to connect with things on a deeper level as well, and helped move through some of those blocks and barriers, and help them to become more conscious really as well.
So I wonder if you'd be okay with saying a little bit more about the psychedelics and maybe what your internal experience was, or because I don't think a lot of people understand. There's becoming more awareness, I know, in the United States around using mushrooms and psilocybin as a doorway. But what's been your experience?
Well, I think working with mushrooms, along with ayahuasca, has helped as well.
So for some reason, your voice will disappear, and it doesn't seem like it has to do with being closer or not. I don't know. Maybe there's a force field that's interfering. So let's try. If you say that again about what has been helpful for you.
Yeah. So working with ayahuasca was
okay.
not dramatically, like we're talking a handful of things, you know, it's not been something that's a big part of my life, because I don't think, you know, these medicines need to be overdone. You know, you can have a very profound experience with just a little you know, touching your toe in once or twice a year. But what they seem to do for me is to open my heart massively. So have an experience of just like opening, connecting to the higher state of consciousness, which generally at the time, you know, obviously these experiences can go in different ways, but it's always been a pretty blissful, love-filled experience for me. But then after the experience, it brings up the blocks. So it's like bringing in so much light, and then all the blocks that have been getting in the way become apparent. And then that's when the real work begins. To work through them and then integrate them, and then to liberate from those patterns and conditioning. So they've been a huge gift for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what about a meditation practice? Has that been something that's been helpful for you?
Yeah, definitely. So meditation for 8 years now, that's been part of my life. And the other big part for me that was really a gift was a gratitude practice. And that was probably the first sign that things were shifting for me quite a few years ago. And then when I found the Enneagram and realized, you know, we have the passion of envy, and you know, it made sense that gratitude had been such a powerful medicine for me, because the perfect antidote to envy, right? So that was when gratitude came into my life, that was a very profound experience.
Awesome. And how how would you explain your experience of envy? I mean, is it circumstantial, certain things happen, or is it you know, for myself, I just during the course of the day randomly will get a wave of envy over whatever I'm looking at, right? It's just sort of passes through, and I go, well, there's the envy. But what's been true for you?
It often manifests as a sense of competitiveness with someone else. But they have something that I don't, and then I feel bad about that. And I want what they have. And maybe just they're more humorous, or they're more playful, or they just seem happier, or they seem more confident, or it can be a number of things, but it will be often tied to someone else. It'll be like, why am I like that? That's not fair, you know? Really like, so it tends to be as a competitiveness. It will show up for me. Which is not very nice. Let's be honest.
Well, it's surely not much fun, that's for sure. So when you notice, oh, there's the envy, how do you try to work with it so you don't get completely absorbed in the belief that they have something better than you and you're less than, or whatever? Do you have a way of waking yourself up so you don't swallow the medicine too deeply?
Yeah, I'm trying. It might be a lifelong process.
Probably.
I think, you know, it's just, again, just trying to be sensitive to when that trigger happens. So like getting to know the triggers, right? You know, at first they're really loud and obvious, but the more work we do, you know, they get that bit more subtle. And so sometimes, you know, you can be running the narrative of beating up on yourself, or feeling deficient or inadequate or insecure, and that story may be running for a little while before it becomes obvious to you. But I think just trying to notice, okay, that's one of the quicksand points for me. You know, that's going to happen. I'm going to fall into that. So when it happens, just really trying to bring a bit more compassion and gentleness to myself. That, oh, okay, I'm back here again. You know, this is this is what's happened. I'm beating up on myself. I'm not feeling good about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that coming from? What's the origin? And then trying to just do a bit of unraveling around that. And that might mean going and having a big cry. It might mean going and journaling and trying to make sense of it by writing it out. It might be bringing it to my therapy session. So any number of those I found can be really helpful at trying to just discharge it and just acknowledge it for what it is. You know, I think Tara Brach's teachings have been really important for me with RAIN. You know, I think that's just been so powerful, just to remember that acronym and just recognize it and allow it and investigate it and then hold it with some gentleness. You know, it's just a wounded part that just needs to be seen, as opposed to battled with and, you know, pushed aside or denied.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned Tara Brach and the RAIN acronym. Could you say what each of those letters mean, what they stand for?
Yeah, so the R stands for recognize.
Recognize, yeah.
We'll just name it and, like, you know, just simply name it. Recognize what's going on, and that's the label to. The A is for acknowledge. And allow, just allow it to be there. You know, you're not trying to push it away. You're not trying to deflect it. Just accept that this is what's happening. And I is for investigate. So get curious about where this maybe come from. Like, follow the thread. You know, try and. This is not really about what's happening right now. This has got its origins somewhere else.
Yeah.
So really try to pull that back and recognize there's probably some healing around that original wounding that needs to be given. And then the N is for to nurture or nourish. Just bring some gentleness back.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, great. That's, and I love her work. Her and Pema Chodron both have that beautiful way of articulating the importance of compassion and receiving your patterns, like, you know, wounded children who keep running out into the street, and so you call them back in and, you know, come on in, team. And it's such a kind way of working with patterns that I know when I was growing up as a kid, I didn't sign up. I didn't sign a contract saying, I hope I have a lot of envy that I get to experience through the course of my life. It just sort of happened, right? So as my teacher said to me, you know, you didn't create your patterns, but you are responsible for transforming them. But it's not your fault. The patterns aren't your fault. So anytime you beat yourself up, that's the work of the personality beating up on itself. So, you know, if you can lighten up a little bit, that will help yourself and everybody around you. So yeah, that's envy is such a compelling state where I feel embarrassed that I'm envious, and then I feel ashamed, and then I'm angry at the person who I'm envious towards, and then will wish them the worst. And then I notice, oh, there's that envy pattern. It likes to, you know, as my friend Russ used to say, you know, if you got envy, you probably notice it once a day. If you're type 4, it just sort of pops up out of nowhere. And so make friends with it. So
it reminds me, you know, like, about the masochism part of the type 4.
Say that again.
Gangaji, she talks about the masochistic aspect of the type 4.
Yes.
And really catching, oh, I'm doing this to myself.
Yes.
You know, I'm comparing myself to another as a way to make myself feel bad.
Yeah.
And that's such a familiar touchstone. And I'm going to just intensify that and wallow in it because it's familiar. And I'll just keep going back there, you know. But it's a masochistic pattern that I'm doing this to myself. Yeah. And that's quite a shock, realizing that.
Well,
it's a shock.
I think one of the things, it's interesting, one of the things that I learned about my own force style was a kind of belief system that if I made myself feel bad enough, that I would get liberated. And of
Yeah.
course, and if I was relaxed and just accepting, I wasn't going to change or transform. So it was like a unconscious belief I had as as a little one, uh, that was supported by then a less healthy Catholic Church, which is, if you declare yourself a sinner and then you really beat yourself up, then you're going to be liberated. But it is, once I began to notice the logic of it, I was able to sort of stand back from it a bit, and not get caught in it as
Yeah.
often.
Yeah, give some distance to it. And for me as well, another great teacher has been A Course in Miracles.
Say that one more time.
A Course in Miracles.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so that was really helpful for me, and just the teaching in that around it's your thoughts alone that cause you pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Course in Miracles is so forgiving and positive around all of this stuff. So I found it very helpful for myself too. Um, so, uh, can you say a little bit about your relationship with beauty and creativity and what it is that kind of lights you up?
Yeah. Well, I I love my home to look nice. So I like things to look good. I'm not always tidy. I kind of secret places where junk gets stored, and my wardrobe's a classic example because no one else gets to see it, so it doesn't have to be beautiful. But when I think about the aesthetics of where I live and how I like things to appear, then yeah, I get a lot of joy from things looking nice. So that's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like to look nice, so I like to dress appropriately for where I'm going, or have earrings or lipstick, or all those adornments. That's important to me to kind of feel good from that point of view. Nature, I just love to be in nature, so we spend a lot of time hiking and walking and canyoning and exploring beautiful places. So nature is a huge part of my life, and actually that was how gratitude first appeared. The power of gratitude appeared to me actually just by stopping me in my tracks one day and smelling jasmine, the smell of a jasmine bush in summer. And I stopped and I started to cry.
Wow.
I was standing there in the street crying, like, what is going on? Like, I've never done this before. And I was about 3 or 4 weeks into a gratitude practice at the time. And that's when I suddenly went, oh, this is softening me, and this is changing the lens through which I view the world to become a lot more sensitive. So beauty just makes me cry. I cry with gratitude as much as I cry with sadness, probably, which is, my husband would say, every day almost, Sometimes it's really just when I'm speaking truth, that often makes me cry. Articulating something which is true to my heart will make me cry. I love writing, so I really enjoy the process of creating through writing and finding just the right phrase and just the right sentence to convey something to other people. That's a really important part of my creative outlet as well. And cooking, like I love to cook, and I love to really think, dial it back to what's the flavor that I want in my mouth. I don't want to feel, it's all about how I'm going to feel. And then what are the ingredients? And then how can I find a recipe that incorporates those ingredients? And then go to buy the fresh produce, and then to create a meal for my family. Like that's a nurturing experience for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so, you mentioned your love of nature, and I've, seen the beautiful photos that you and your husband put on Facebook. It's just like wow, the gorgeous scenes. Man, so I've been really touched by those, and that. Do you guys travel a lot and go to locations? Is it right in your backyard? I mean,
It's pretty close to where we live.
wow.
We're in lockdown right now, so we
Oh,
have
you are in lockdown.
it's been about 6 weeks for us so far this time around.
So come
So
just a little closer.
yeah, so we've had we've got a 10-kilometer radius of where we can go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and sometimes we'll push it a little bit, not too much, but you know,
Yeah.
I like to break the rules every now and then. So we'll go, but Sydney is so beautiful. There's so many amazing tracks and incredible places to explore, not too far from where we live. So yeah, when it's not lockdown, we do travel. We go to the Blue Mountains, which is, you know, an hour and a half from where we live. It's not too far. And so we'll jump in the van and we'll just go off camping for the weekend. You know,
Wow.
we'll explore and just spend time doing that. And that's just so nurturing for the soul. So I'm very grateful to have met someone like Eric who has such a passion for the outdoors and who's opened my eyes to that, and who's such an amazing photographer, right? So his photographs just
beautiful.
all over the world. I mean, we've got them all over our house, framed photographs of his, which are just incredible. So.
Well, what is his type?
He's a 1.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sexual 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is
awesome.
And what is are you aware of what your instinctual stack is, or what your dominant is?
So this is quite interesting. So I always, from when I discovered the type 6.5 years ago, I was pretty identified with sexual subtype. That felt really true for me. But fairly recently, I did the IEQ9 assessment from the South African group, and it came out as a social form. So it was really like, oh, that's, and I mean, I don't know how this works, right? But I kind of feel like an equal foot in both camps when it comes to the sexual and social instincts. So there's definitely parts I identify with both of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so sounds like you identify the self-pres as being the weakest instinct, or the one that's and how does that manifest in your life? How does that blind spot operate?
Manage the finances.
Finances?
I'm terrible at it. I'm very lax. It doesn't feel important to me, and I don't want to spend my time doing it. There's a lot of resistance. I just want to go and enjoy life and do the things I love, and yeah, it's just not something that feels like a priority for me.
Yeah. Well,
What about you?
My blind spot is self-pres, and it's challenging to navigate because I have to be good at it, or at least functionally good, but it never cheers me up. It's always painful to do every month. And organizing, finances is, you'd think I was climbing a mountain somewhere, right? I just want to follow the latest inspiration and the latest book and the latest music. And but I think both my wife and I are low self-pres, and I'm just in the position where I got to take care of the money, and I do it. I'm just not very cheerful about it, and I put it off. It seems like this is the least important thing on planet Earth that I could engage in.
And it's like being, I remember I was sitting with my sister one time, my eldest sister, who's extremely organized. Like she's a doer, she's methodical, she's pragmatic, she's incredible. Like it's daunting almost to me to sort of observe how she lives. And we're sitting beside each other one day, and I had my phone, and she happened to glance at my phone, and she said, "Is that the number of emails in your inbox?" And I said, "Yeah." And I had 84,000 emails in my inbox. And she was horrified. She was like, "How do you live?" And I was like, "Quite happily." And she was just horrified, you know. And I thought that's a pretty good example of someone who's
Yeah. Well, I have a dear friend who is a type 4 self-press dominant. She's an artist, but she loves doing the taxes and she loves doing accounting, which to me is like a death wish. But she says, yo, I get so excited whenever I organize something. I just feel so happy afterwards. And I go, wow, we live in different worlds. I'm just usually, but anyway, so it's, you know, even though she's a beautiful artist, she loves organizational structure. And I'm just in awe of that. It's like another language. My brain can't comprehend it.
No, I just can't do it. And you know, thinking about your question earlier about beauty, what brings you beauty, and I forgot to mention music, because you know, music is such a rich one for me as well. I just want to lose myself in music, and just feel all the feelings and get transported to another world, and just like, that's the best way to be, you know. Not going through emails and tax returns and, you know. Yeah.
Well, you know, I've discovered that I can eliminate all my emails at one press of the button and they're gone. And I figure if it's important, they'll write again. But yeah, well, one area that fours, myself included, say that they have struggled with is around relationship. And from the standpoint of, we have to talk about it, is that fours, like you know, as a younger person, I had this idealized vision of who my soulmate was. And then I would find somebody, and then in about a week, they would disappoint me. And then I would be kind of grumpy, like, you're not my soulmate, you've got flaws, right? But it took me a long time not to be caught up in a kind of infatuated idealism around who I was attracted to or who I wanted to be in relationship with. And it seemed like my, you know, type 4, that fantasy world that I would go into when I'd start a relationship wasn't such a good thing for the relationship, because I was almost like comparing the human being to some idealized version in my fantasy world, and they could never match up. So I would be attracted and then I'd be disappointed, and attracted and disappointed. And it took me many, many years to sort of neutralize that and come into reality. But is that something that you struggled with? And I mean, relationships are hard anyway, but anything of the fourish stuff that you've had to learn or navigate to be more present in a relationship?
Yeah. Definitely in my younger years, you know, when I think back, they're very romantic. So there's definitely that sort of idealization of relationship, and just, you're my one true person, you know. Let's just run away and get married when you're 16, you know. Like, that was very strong, you know. Like, my first boyfriend, the relationship lasted 2 years, you know. We were madly in love, and you know, felt Romeo and Juliet-esque. So that was definitely there. But I've not had too many long-term relationships, to be honest. I was married for 10 years before, and yeah, there was maybe some idealization in that relationship, but not too much. And then I was single for about a year or so before I met Eric. So there wasn't too much of that sort of dance of falling for someone, then being disappointed, and falling for someone and disappointed. And I think I'm quite selective when it comes to partners. You know, I'd rather be on my own than be with someone that I was feeling compromised with as an adult. But I think I definitely, when I met him, I was probably the one that fell hardest and fell quickest. And really was like, oh, you're it, you know. It took him a little bit longer to catch up, you know.
Yeah, well, type 1s tend to be a little more practical and and slow moving. And but once they're in, right? You got somebody who would be with you forever.
Yeah.
So the other thing I've noticed as a type 4 that I have had to wrestle with this idealization of what the planet would be like if people were just kind to each other, like sort of an idea, and then being shocked over and over again that it doesn't quite operate that way. But I feel it's like it's really in the stream of my awareness every day, the sense of the potential beauty and harmony that could be here. And of course, doing workshops with people on the Enneagram always wakes that up because people are so lovely. And then it's contrasted with the other half of human beings who are asleep and sometimes not too positive, actually kind of destructive. And so seeing those forces of destruction, and then my deep heart wish for idealized, healed planet, it's something I struggle with. Has that been something you've noticed in your life?
Yeah, a little bit. When I saw the impact that gratitude had on my state of mind and happiness levels, the strongest sense I had was, what would the world be like if everyone practiced gratitude? It totally changed my way of being from thinking like a victim to just feeling so appreciative of the smallest things in life. So that drove this sense of purpose that I want to teach people how to do this. And so 4 years ago, I ran like a 60-day challenge for like 300 people around the world.
Really?
And I coached them through a gratitude practice,
Wow.
and wrote a little handbook that went along with it. And so that definitely fits into what you're describing, this sense of, if more people are able to connect to their hearts in that way, then the world will be kinder. The world will be more loving. The world will be more compassionate. And so that act of service doesn't leave me alone. So I incorporate that pretty much into all the work that I do, to just try and light that spark in people that there is another way to be. Yeah. And gratitude sounds so simplistic and hokey at times, and just a little bit like a bumper sticker. And it's, it's such a throwaway line to just be grateful, but it's a deep spiritual practice.
Awesome.
When you really learn how to do it properly and adopt it as part of your daily habits, is profound.
Well, I've heard people say they swear by it, and I have a type 4 resistance pattern for some reason. My coach, who's a type 7, will say, "Okay, try this affirmation. Today will be the most awesome day for your, today I'm going to have an awesome day." And I go, "Oh, that's a little bit too much. How about it's going to be a pretty good day, and good things will happen. But the awesome part, like that just puts me over the edge." And he'll laugh.
Yeah, I agree. That's a little bit too much.
Yeah. Good.
The one that I had on my fridge for a long time was kind of more cultivating a sense of curiosity. I don't know what's going to happen today, but it's going to be good.
Oh, nice. I like that.
That to me creates a little bit of energy in the solar plexus, a bit of just bubbling of, I don't know what today holds, but I'm going to choose to look at it in a good way, because good things are going to come.
Yeah, awesome. I like that. Yeah. That feels more palatable and open. So well, so any sort of type 4 themes that you'd like to talk about that I haven't asked questions about at this point, or what's
I think like you describe it sometimes as the swamp, you fall into the swamp. So I think there's definitely something in the whole being overwhelmed by your feelings.
Yes,
which has been a big lesson for me. And one of the mantras in our household is, you can have your feelings without letting your feelings have you.
Yes. Yeah.
And And I resisted that for so long because it was almost as if I was denying the intensity of the feelings, then I wasn't being authentic.
Yeah.
But actually seeing that, oh, I'm more than my feelings. The feelings are transient, and I can hold them lightly without fully falling into the swamp and letting them dictate the course of my day or my week.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. And for you, if you accidentally fall in the swamp, how do you get out? Do you have any sort of surefire quick remedies that work for you?
Sometimes someone else pulling me out of the swamp.
Grab my hand. Yeah.
Like here and there. I think, well, movement can help. Really choosing at that point to get on my mat and do some yoga or discharging the energy that way can really help. Sometimes it is just giving into it as well, like letting it run its course. And I was talking to one of my dear friends a couple of weeks ago. She's a type 3, and I had been feeling this sort of like grief about the COVID situation and how life, we've lost the way life used to be before the pandemic, and it's not coming back anytime soon. So there's just this real grief the whole day. And I was saying to her how I just had to lie on the sofa and give into it because I couldn't do anything else that day. And she was like incredulous, like, what do you mean? What do you mean? You just like lay on the sofa and like didn't work all day? And I was like, well, I couldn't. Like, I actually had to just let it run its course. It would be counterproductive to try and rush that process or pretend it wasn't there and try and just sit in my computer and work because I was useless.
Yeah.
And I had to just sit there and feel the heaviness of it and feel the grief and cry the tears and then it moved through.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a important point because sometimes, there'll be sort of little, what would be the best word for it? Kind of cliche things that fours should be careful of, which is don't identify with your feelings. But it doesn't mean don't experience your feelings. If something's triggered you, you feel sad, you feel grief, it's really, fours can be quite good at dropping into that sadness and feeling it. And, but that's different than cultivating, well, what we call it sometimes the replay mode. I'll replay a scene that hurt me over and over again. And because I'm creative, I add details to it to make it even worse, right? And I become sort of a mess at that point. And that's different than actually feeling sincere grief, whether it's it does appear that fours are called to do deep inner work to clear out their emotional suffering. It seems like a little bit more than other types. I don't have, that's mostly just my perception of it, but feelings, that's the heart and soul of the four when they're healthy, is they feel things, right? And they can sense it in their heart. And so I'm not, so for you, have you ever gotten that mixed up around, oh, gee, you're being too emotional and you shouldn't go there so often, as opposed to this is going to heal your heart and soul if you feel this? I mean, how have you navigated those two extremes?
Yeah, it is a delicate dance, I think, that one.
It is.
Trying to discern what is actually healthy in terms of acknowledging and processing what needs to be given space versus, as you say, running that story and adding more juice to it. And we kind of talk about the poor me, fuck you dynamic in our house. If something's locked in there and you're starting to view the world as people are doing this to me, poor me, I'm a victim.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to be really angry at those people making me feel this way.
Yeah.
That to me is like the big signpost that needs to be at the side of the swamp to check myself
Yeah.
Is this what I'm doing? You know, am I actually sort of just blaming other people,
Hmm.
supposed to taking responsibility for myself?
Yeah.
And so that's a real, yeah, I have to really watch for that because it can be very sneaky. I can be cooking dinner and something pops into my head and all of a sudden I'm running a story
Yeah.
that there's been a slight, someone's, you know, slighted me somehow. And then it becomes blown up and it's just running in the background. And then by the time someone comes home, I'm ready to pounce and, you know, take my anger out on them. And the poor person is just like, what the hell, you know, I've not done anything. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's just been, to me, it's just reminding myself, you know, that this is a trap that I can fall into. This is a program of poor me and just want to blame other people. And that's very different to acknowledging I have an existential grief about what's happening with humanity. And I
Yeah.
need to give myself space to process that. Those are
Yeah.
two very different.
Yeah. Well, and you describe uh, very accurately the subtlety of how it can enter, like a small slight. If you're not paying attention, it's like the cloud moves in, and then it gets dark, and now there's a storm, and you know, now I have to kill a few people. It's just how it is. Somebody's got to die, and it's going to be you. And it, you know, and then my poor wife comes in the doorway and looks at me a little bit funny, and it's like, you know. So yeah,
And you know, I think I'm only in the last probably year or two realizing just how difficult it must be for the people around me. Like,
that
yeah, you know, I don't always realize how intense I can appear to other people because to me it's just this is real, this is in the moment, and this is what I'm feeling, and it's legitimate. And so
yeah.
the other person, it's like, you were fine when I left the house this morning, like we were kissing and cuddling and everything was beautiful, and now I'm the devil incarnate. Like, what happened? You know, what happened? And there's something dressed up under the guise of you didn't see me, you didn't recognize me, you don't love me enough. You
Yeah.
know, if you did love me enough, you wouldn't have done that.
Uh-huh.
Bullshit. It's all just bullshit. And that's when I kind of go, I must sometimes be a real pain in the ass to live with. You
Well,
know?
I've often said I'm so grateful I don't have to live with myself as my partner, because I would definitely have to throw him out on the street because there's not enough. You know, my wife might say the same thing, like you were happy a moment ago, and now you're like on the verge of jumping off the cliff. What happened?
Yeah.
And you know, that's when I can get defensive. But I often say, you know, the type 4 can go from the ecstasy to the agony in 5 seconds flat, right? You just never, just, and then, so that's, I think that is, I've been told that that's challenging. and
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to, I'm more aware of it now that I'm, can be over dramatic or over emotionally intense, like, okay, you don't really understand what I'm saying. So if I say it with more force and energy and maybe print it on your forehead, then you will understand me. Oh, you just ran out of the room. What happened?
The other
Yeah.
parent can just seem like you've erased all the good things in the relationship like, instantly. You just erase them. You
So,
know, and for me, it's not I've erased it, it's just something else is taken front and center in my mind, which is not always true. It's just an illusion,
yeah.
but it can feel very real.
Yeah.
It can be a very powerful trance to fall into.
Well, it's a great word too, is the trance. There's like a trance I can fall into, and it feels real. And of course, you know, when you're in an illusion, it feels real. It's like there's no illusion here. I'm the real one, and you're not. So what am I going to do with you? So it's, you know, it is, you know, it's taken me a lot of work to begin to not be so identified as the one who's carrying the truth for everyone. So
Yeah, and I think that's where the body awareness has become so powerful for assisting that process. I mean, the last year or so, I've really dived into Almas's work,
Mm-hmm.
Essence work,
Uh-huh.
and I'm working with an Essence practitioner, which has just been the biggest gift this year to just cultivate that awareness. But when I'm in touch with presence or true nature, there's just this deep contentment, you know, especially across the chest, you know, and I can
Yeah.
almost feel, it almost feels like, you know, like bellows that are just concertinaing down. Like that's what presence can feel like. It's just this humming in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Hum of contentment
Mm-hmm.
and connection to being, and just it's so beautiful.
Mm.
But then if there's something else on the surface that's agitated, it's taken me away from that presence. So I can be more alert to when that's happening. It's like, okay, there's something here, because I'm getting more language around feeling into what's happening in my body, explaining it, articulating it, exploring it, having a guide to help work with me through that.
Awesome.
It's magical. Like that's a magical process to go through. Like I'm so grateful for that, because it's just, it feels like being an explorer in space, but within your own being. You know, it's like you're just investigating. So that then has been a bit more of a sign for me if I'm disconnected from my true nature.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe before it's getting to the, I'm really caught in the trance and I'm acting it out with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm getting better and better at seeing it earlier.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, that feels good.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that I can relate to all that you've said there. You know, for myself, I feel like a spaciousness in my heart center, and but it has a depth to it. It's like there's this inner quiescence that holds everything, that feels like I have everything I need. You know, so there's like fulfillment, and it's not conceptual. It's just a state of being that I get to participate in, and I notice for myself you know, through the Enneagram Institute and through Diamond Heart and through other Essence work, you know, learning to develop more capacity for sensing inside my body is often the kind of observational tower where I notice when I'm starting to lose contact or tighten up, or there's something about the sensing practice that it's like, in my experience, and again, words are clumsy here, is that I can feel the nature of my tightening a lot quicker, which is great. You know, it just allows me to halt. But so when you talk about somatic work, is it sensation you're working on, or what? How would you describe your somatic work?
So I did work with a somatic psychotherapist
So that one.
For a couple of years. So she would really just have some talk therapy and then get me on the floor and you know, craniosacral based, which was just amazing. But the essence work is different. So that's much more just what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it.
Mm-hmm. Where do you sense it?
Yeah, where do you sense it?
Yeah.
What texture does it have? Does it have a color? Like what's, and really, you know, it's amazing what can just reveal itself through that exploration. It just, you know, opens up and opens up and opens up. And,
yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that's really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So, that said, you know, one of the things that I've noticed as a type 4, as a little guy, I experienced this deep longing for something I couldn't put my hands on. There's a sense of, you know, I want something, but I don't know how to fulfill it. There's like an emptiness or like a hole. And so as a little guy, you know, I would find external things to try to satisfy that emptiness. And and it would be kind of confusing because something would satisfy for a while. Maybe it was some kind of accomplishment or playing sports, and then the emptiness would be there again. And I didn't know how to work with it. It was kind of perplexing because no matter what external experience I had, it didn't get rid of whatever that was, which today feels like it was really my own spiritual calling to find out, what is it that really resonates for me on a deeper level. So did you experience that sense of longing as a little one, or is that something that was a part of your, daily question about who am I and why am I here? I mean, what was true for you? So I for some reason that you just cut out again. I don't know why.
Um,
There.
yeah, there can just be this longing without really knowing what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, like I can't put words to it. It just feels like something's missing.
Yes.
And I'm searching and seeking, and even when everything is good, there can still be this sense of, yeah, but there's something missing. It could be better, it could be more, which is crazy, right? I think what I've learned though recently is more that there's beauty in the emptiness as opposed to being scared of the emptiness.
Great.
That used to, the emptiness when I tuned into it used to create a sort of grasping kind of
fear. Yeah.
As opposed to, it's empty and it's spacious and this feels good.
Awesome.
So it's like a reframe, I think, from being scared of the emptiness, and using it as that identity of the four to feel less than, feel inadequate. Feel that story in that loop, in the massacre versus it's just emptiness, and that opens up possibilities.
Well, it's interesting. My teacher said to me at one point, I was talking about the emptiness, and he said, "It's just emptiness. What's the big deal?" What? Says it'll pass, and everything comes from the emptiness. So you don't need to build a cathedral to it. You can just know, oh, there's the emptiness, and that's it. Get curious about it. So, but that was quite a shocking revelation. I thought, because it was like a red flag would go up. Emptiness. Oh my God, what does this mean? I must do something. What's wrong with me? Yeah. Okay. Well, when you think about your evolution, is there anything that comes to mind to you that you might, that on Facebook there's type 4 groups, and a lot of times people writing in are in that kind of the throes of agony, and what do I do with these emotions, and blah blah blah. Anything that comes to mind for you as kind of an encouragement for the beloved type 4s as they encounter their patterns?
Yeah, I think that there's hope. Like there's real hope. When it feels for me that life is moving pretty fast in terms of that, learning and growing phase the last few years. So I can look back to 2 years ago or a year ago and not feel like the same person I am today. So I think really embracing the Enneagram, with all the gifts that it has as that map to show us where those areas are that we fall into. And the more that we can work with other people to help us. I mean, for me personally, relationship has been number one teacher and helping me evolve and grow. Like number one. Therapy's been great, yoga's been great, all the different other things, meditation, gratitude have been great, but relationship, having someone else there to go, here's what's going on, this is not okay, has been the trigger to then unravel my own stories and free myself from that crap has been so powerful. So I think it's really important to work with other people. You don't want to fall into a trap of just talking with someone too like yourself. You know, sometimes you know, I'm not a big one. I'm not a big one for those groups because I really just don't want to get stuck in a cycle.
Yeah.
Perpetuating and stuck in the Enneagram of personality. That's not what it's about. It's about growth and evolution. And I think Beatrice Chestnut really talks to this very well. You know, with the way she approaches it, it's about knowledge of the Enneagram with psychotherapy together to help you evolve and grow. So I think just have hope. Things do change. It does get easier. The patterns, you know, are the periods of harmony or equanimity get longer, which then gives encouragement to keep doing the work.
Absolutely.
So, you know, that's a really great, when you start to see the trade-offs for doing the work, and you start to see, oh, I wouldn't have done that a year ago. I would have been stuck in the swamp for 2 days. I would have been taking it out on everyone around me. Oh,
yeah,
there's growth here. That's so encouraging to keep going.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we've covered a lot of territory here. Anything else you want to add before we close out for this time?
No, I think that's I think we have covered a lot. It's been really rich. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been
I'm so grateful to the Enneagram. You know, I love it and hate it in equal measure sometimes. The Enneagram has caused me to almost vomit. It's caused me to faint when I've been really faced with my fixation. You know, I've actually fainted on the floor. It's been pretty dramatic, but I don't think there's any other tool for self-awareness and development, and to help you really live in harmony with yourself. That's what it's all about, right? And just be connected to love and truth, and live with our being and love it the best we can, and love others the best we can. That's just
beautiful.
Great. So
well, thank you, Catherine. It's really a pleasure to talk with you. And what I'm going to do is send you a copy of the interview and have you take a look at it and see if you're like it and all of that. And then I will put it on Facebook or wherever if you're okay with that, or on my YouTube channel. But so I'll get it to you later. Well, it'll be later in the day for you. You got the bright sun out there, and we're in the dark swamp here. But yeah, so I'm going to stop the recording for right now, and